Good morning from Yami BTV. Wishing you all well, sending loads of love your way on a cold, dreary day coming from down here. Now, after another great live last night, that is created by us really. Now, sometimes I'm wondering, is it worth saying, ask me questions about this one and that one, or what topic you want? Because it always ends up the same way with us lot talking about anything, and then the emotions changing from this bit to that bit, which brings out my stuff, and then we all have a giggle and all that. So some of you don't blame me because you're not asking me the questions that I put up there in the headline thing. Now, I'm not on the community page. Now, after that, I was shattered. I went to bed and I woke up in the middle of the night, about 1 o'clock, right? Opened my eyes and Channel 5 was on, and it immediately got my attention because it was a historic documentary on HMP Wormwood Scrubs, where they're basically saying that it's the worstest prison ever for brutality by staff on inmates, going back from the 60s up to the current time, probably as well, right? Now, I don't know if some of you have seen that documentary, because I've never seen it. Is it repeat or something? Or unless I've forgotten. But the beginning of it goes to George Blake, the spy, right, for the Russian KGB, selling out the MI5, and he gets a big long sentence. And there's 3 others there as well on similar kind of crimes, and then 4 planning an escape in the 60s, right? But them 3 get off, I think. So I don't think an escape took place. But interesting that I found in there that they spoke about in the 60s, obviously 70s, and 70 going into the 70s, that Ian Brady and Peter Sutcliffe used to play chess together, and that Peter Sutcliffe got off the table one day and said to someone that Ian Brady is a proper cold-hearted psychopathic killer. What was we talking about yesterday? About some of us looking that our crimes are not as bad as yours, and that you're the scourge of the earth. And it's interesting how Peter Sutcliffe's mind works, isn't it? Because then what was he then? Because you raped and murdered loads of women. Mad, isn't it? But then I thought about what Razor said on that programme, and it is kind of fantasy. Because who made this thing, that sex offenders were the worst? What if it was us, the robbers, the burglars, the murderers? Because that's what he's talking about as well. What if they were in the high position, the sex offenders? Who created that bit's worse than that bit and that bit? I understand now what Razor means. It's a funny old game, isn't it? But it was them. They created it from the crack of dawn, because it was that kind of stuff was always talked about when we forced, all of us went to prison, that they were the worstest of the worst. So we just all followed suit, which they are really. But I know what they mean, because we were all the scourge of the earth. Anyone that committed crimes, habitual ones anyway, against people, innocent people, for whatever reason, we were meant to get scourged as well. Really strange how it all works when you think about it as you get older. Now, as well as that, right, then they tried to change it, because there was a lot of violence by the staff on inmates. And around about the 80s, they started bringing in music vans to bring people in and bring them together. And for a couple of years, it went all right and all that. And then I remembered the 90s, when the biggest probably case of its kind of brutality from staff to inmates, I was there. So there was a big pack of them in the team that used to walk around everywhere together like they were the kings of the castle, and they had permission to do whatever they want. Loads of people committing suicide, regular beatings, tortures, vulnerable people, and that kind of stuff. They even said they raped a few people. I don't think that bit happened, but interesting. The one that went Queen's evidence against his own staff and all that, I saw him in Whitemore years later, and he told me little bits about it as well. Right, but I faced them, because that was the time they were jumping on everyone, mate. Right, so one day I'm in an E-man suit, an escapee, a yellow budget guard suit. Right, they come for me on the wing, and they said, "Yeah, right, back of the wall. You're going down the block. Been doing this and that and doing that." So they brought me down the block, but they was intimidating me all the way down, waiting for me to react, so that they could beat me up, basically. But I only had a few days before I went to court. So I was kind of playing it cool, right? But again, I was sensible enough to know that I'm outnumbered. And the main one that ended up getting the biggest sentence, dark hair, tall, he was standing and goes, "Gee, not so tough now, are you?" And all that. I was just looking and all that. But what they forgot was that Gary Nelson was across the road there, right? So Gary Nelson was across the road. Roger Vincent was there. Super was there. George Campbell was to the right as well. Now, those that follow me some time would have seen the story with GN and my story about the bread roll, right? So that was a classic one, weren't it? So those who ain't seen it, you better go and watch it, right? So they left it, and then one of those days, the next day or whatever, they came with a lunch, right? You didn't get much soup and a bread roll and all that. You give me the soup, but you said you run out of bread rolls, you can't have none. But you gave all the Rule 43 protections up there and gave everybody else, but not mine. So I was going, yeah, but you know, because I wanted to dip the roll in because it's not a big lunch, right? But I suffered it anyway. But I didn't know that GN was watching through his door. So he came out with his nightgown on, right, his slippers, and he had a big chain on. He was the only man that I see them bottle lose their bum over and wouldn't jump on him. They jumped on everybody else, right? He said, "Oh, then why are you giving Yami his bread roll?" They're saying, "Yo, no, we run out, Gary and all that." He goes, "No." He goes, "Listen, go and get one, go and get it, and open the door and give him." And they all started to circle around him, right? I witnessed this with my own eyes, right? GM's probably one of the realest men that I've ever met. We've got to be honest about this. And they were surrounding him, and Mr. Slocum was going, "Yeah, but Gary, listen." He's going, "Nah." He goes, "Open it." They all started to crowd him out. Listen, what, you think you're all going to bum rush me? Wow. I saw them absolutely shit. Gary, no, all right, we'll get the roll. You got the roll for me and got it. You know what I mean? I was having a quiet little giggle at that, right? But they all ended up getting Big Bird. That's how it went. And they were doing what they were doing, but we didn't really think nothing of it back then, I don't think, because a lot of prisons from the 80s and 90s, we used to get that kind of treatment. A long time ago in Wandsworth and the Isle of Wight, everywhere, it was that kind of thing. They could get away with anything they wanted in reality. Everything used to get covered up and everything. No one ever went to court until this thing with this group. At the WORMWOOD SCRUBS thing, noticed that they all got their sentences, but they went to DCATs and all that, if you get what I mean. But the other thing I forgot to tell you as well, I was looking at, someone sent me a Google thing about Dominic Noonan with the Strangeways riots. And he said to me, I mean, is that true though, that Dominic was the cause? He got everyone to riot in Strangeways. Well, the simple thing is that he got moved a few days before for some other stuff. But he knew some of the people that were involved in riots. I think they put all that together. I never really heard, and I was everywhere, weren't I? I never really heard. I don't know how that notoriety. Again, things getting put to you, and people thinking, yeah, this is allegedly put all this in. Don't we get it sometimes with this? It's media hyped and the authority saying, yeah, well, he did get moved and did, but oh yeah, but it's disputed as well. So they're joining dots and things. But those who haven't seen it have probably seen it before. Maybe some of you, but the date says today, so I'm not too sure. But loads of love to you, right? I'm going to do a video after.